There are some memories that even time cannot erase. Before he became the final prophet for all of mankind, before revelations descended, before the world knew his name, Muhammad, peace be upon him, was just a 6-year-old boy, holding his mother's hand tightly, unaware that soon she would leave this world and take with her the only comfort he had left. This is the story of the last days Muhammad, peace be upon him, spent with his beloved mother, Hazrat Amina. A journey of longing, heartbreak, and divine destiny. 6 long years had passed since Hazrat Abdullah, husband of Hazrat Amina, had left this world. She had wept in silence night after night, aching for the man she had spent only a few months with after marriage. But despite the pain, she had never even been able to visit his grave. One day, unable to hold back her sorrow any longer, she came to her father-in-law, Abdul Muttalib, and said, "Father, allow me to visit Yathrib. I want to see his resting place. One last time." He gave his permission. Hazrat Amina packed her things. She took with her her loyal maid Ayman and her son Muhammad, peace be upon him, who was just 6 years old. The journey from Makkah to Medina was long, nearly 400 kilometers, a silent, deserted path through dry valleys and haunted winds. As the camel moved slowly across the barren lands, Hazrat Amina's eyes filled with tears. She kept whispering in her heart, "Abdullah, why did you leave me so soon? I had only just begun my life with you. It's been 6 years, and I still don't understand. Why me?" Her son Muhammad, peace be upon him, sat quietly beside her, perhaps sensing the heaviness in her heart, though too young to understand the full depth of her pain. After 10 long days, they reached Medina. As soon as Hazrat Amina saw her mother after 6 years, all her strength broke. She embraced her and wept, not with words, but with the cries of a heart that had endured far too much. The household stood in silence, watching the young widow in her 20s sob in her mother's arms. Her mother whispered softly, "Daughter, don't cry. Allah will reward you for your patience." When her mother saw Muhammad, peace be upon him, she was in awe. "Look at my grandson," she said to everyone. "How beautiful Allah has made him." 2 days later, Hazrat Amina finally visited the grave of her husband. She sat beside it for hours, tears rolling endlessly. Perhaps she whispered her regrets. Perhaps she imagined how their life could have been. And then, as the sun set, she quietly returned. A month passed. One morning, Hazrat Amina said to her mother, "Mother, I must return to Makkah." And so the journey began, again. Years later, when the companions asked Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, about his childhood, he would describe those very places he had visited with his mother in Medina, as if they were yesterday. He took them to the fort of Banu Najjar and said, "This is where my mother brought me when I was just 6. He pointed to a house. "Here is where we stayed together. I remember watching little birds fly off from the rooftop. I would play when they sat on the windows. Then another house. This is where I learned to swim. And then, that fort," he said, "I was playing there with a young girl when 2 Jewish scholars approached me. They had been observing me ever since we arrived in Medina, and now, finding me alone, they looked at my back and saw the seal of prophethood between my shoulders. Recognizing him instantly, one of them whispered, 'This is the one. This child is the final prophet.' Later, they went to his mother, Hazrat Amina, and said, 'Protect this child well. He is not an ordinary boy. He is destined for a divine mission.' This incident wasn't the only one. Ayman, the woman who had raised him, later shared, 'One of those Jewish scholars came to me as well. He asked, 'Can I see the child who lives in your home?' So she brought young Muhammad, peace be upon him, to him. The man kissed the boy on the forehead and said, 'Yes, this is the one. This is the final prophet. One day he will return to Medina, and the world will witness great events here.' Ayman would later say, 'Their words scared me, and I never forgot what they said for the rest of my life. It was perhaps these very signs and conversations that led Hazrat Amina to finally decide to return to Mecca with her son. The journey that became her last. Muhammad, peace be upon him, at the front, his mother in the middle, Ayman at the back. But just 3 days into their return, fate struck again. They reached the lonely desert village of Abwa. Suddenly, Hazrat Amina, clutched her chest and cried out, Ayman, there's a pain in my chest. Alarmed, Ayman guided the camel to a high rock plateau nearby. There, she gently helped Hazrat Amina off the camel and laid her on a stone. Muhammad, peace be upon him, stood nearby, his tiny eyes brimming with tears. He softly asked, Mother, why won't you talk to me? Why are you quiet? Please, talk to me. Hazrat Amina pulled her son close, placed his head on her chest, and looked at him one final time. A witness to this moment was a local woman, the mother of Sama. Then, with her eyes full of love and tears, she closed them forever. The boy lifted his head. There was no movement, no breath, no warmth. She was gone. The only person who had ever truly loved him had left. At just 6 years old, Muhammad, peace be upon him, was now completely orphaned. No father, no mother, no brother, no sister, just a servant. And endless sky above. He cried, holding his mother's cold hands, whispering, Mother, you were all I had. Why did you leave me too? I don't want to go back without you. Please, wake up. Ayman dug a grave with her own hands, moving heavy stones alone. When she tried to lift Hazrat Amina into the grave, Muhammad, peace be upon him, clung to his mother's body, crying, Don't leave her in these stones. I want to take her home with me. Eventually, Ayman carried the crying child back to the camel. When she turned to mount the camel, Muhammad, peace be upon him, was missing. Panicked, she looked around until she saw him again, lying over the grave, sobbing. You promised you'd never leave me, and now you have. I won't leave you either. With all her love, she picked him up and rode towards Mecca. He kept looking back. He kept whispering, Take me back to my mother, please, just once more. Bearing Muhammad, peace be upon him, was now 57 years old. As the Prophet of Allah, he led thousands of companions, yet the wound inside had never healed. One day, on a journey, he stopped the caravan and said, Set up camp here. We will not go further. The place was Abwa. He stepped down from his camel, walked slowly to his mother's grave, and sat by it. Then, the seal of prophets, placed his blessed head upon his knees, and wept like a child. Soft sobs turned to deep cries, and the mighty prophet trembled in pain that had waited 50 years to be spoken. After a long while, he raised his head, his beard soaked in tears. He said to his companions, If only my mother were alive today, and I was standing in prayer, and she called out to me, O Muhammad, I would leave the prayer and rush to her side, saying, Here